Now, Dr. Wright went over some of the, before I get to that, I do want to say that right here in Sutaja Dai Hall and Banatao Institute, researchers working with their colleagues at Merced, Davis, and Santa Cruz will use multidimensional approaches to find solutions to society's most pressing problems. And Dr. Wright has already mentioned several things that are being done. I won't go over those, so I'm skipping over those pages in my speech. But I do want to get to a couple things, one of which he mentioned briefly and one of which he didn't. He talked about Demand Research Project. You'll recall in 2001, we had some blackouts. There's some story to that, and I won't get into the details, but see the DVD about Enron. That's a good primer. However, whether that crisis was manipulated entirely or just in part, we do have to be more efficient as a society, and we do have to show the rest of the world something about demand efficiency. Now, we have done that. For 3 decades, California's population has doubled, and our increase in demand has been 0. It's a flat line. The rest of America has grown at 30%. And when candidate and Senator Obama came out here to talk to Stephen Chu, he gave him what we did in terms of building better appliances and better houses and buildings and building materials over 30 years, and said, if you do this for the rest of America, you will achieve a competitive advantage over the rest of the world. And that's exactly what he and President Obama are going to do, and hopefully some of that grant money will be sprinkled over Berkeley and over the national lab up there, as well it should. But the specific things that Citron is doing that I want to mention on demand management, whether it's an appliance in your home like a refrigerator or air conditioning or a whole industry, you can get real-time energy information, which will allow you to reduce, if you choose, the amount of energy you're consuming, thereby averting too much stress on the electricity grid, saving you money, and averting blackouts. The other thing I want to mention that is on the market now was, I got a demonstration of this early on from David Breslauer, a graduate student right here at Berkeley, and he's developed a CellScope, which is a combination of a cell phone and a microscope, which is capable of capturing an image, magnifying it 1,000 times, and transmitting it back to a laboratory. So if you're in the field in a third world country and you're diagnosing a blood sample to detect malaria or TB, you can do it. Or if you're in a home and want to take a blood sample and see if someone has developed cancer, you can do it. That is a device that is available today, which is helping improve our lives. Thank you. Let me close with one final thought. All of us are the beneficiary of the sacrifice, hard work, and innovation of the generations that have come before us. I remember going to parties at David Packard's ranch when he would get about 100 people who would discuss innovation at Stanford and UC Berkeley and UC San Francisco. And he'd have academics there, and he'd have venture capitalists there, and he'd have entrepreneurs there. And I remember the pioneering work that UC Berkeley, UC San Francisco, and Stanford did developing the biotechnology industry, which has revolutionized the way we live around the world. Those and many other advantages now accrue to us, and we stand on the shoulders of some special people. California is probably the best place on earth for innovation, and that is a good thing in a global economy, because you can't outsource something you have not yet invented. And as long as we keep inventing, there'll be a role for California and there'll be a role for America. And my message is invest in research universities and America will be strong. But one other great inspiration to me was Irwin Jacobs. Irwin Jacobs was a professor at MIT. He then spent some time at Caltech, and then he went to the University of California at San Diego. He started something in the 70s called Linkabit, sold that, developed a company, sold it for $1 billion in the early 80s, and started a little-known company called Qualcomm, which is the largest employer in San Diego, employs about 14,000 people, and another 22,000 work in San Diego supplying parts to Qualcomm. That is the best example of academic innovation positively impacting lives in California. And so I'm now going to close by introducing a graduate student. She hasn't quite achieved the eminence of Irwin Jacobs. Oh, I might add, Irwin's son is here, Paul, who is a graduate student from UC Berkeley, as is his wife. They both went to the School of Engineering. So even though Irwin is associated with UC San Diego, Paul is associated with UC Berkeley. But it's now my pleasure, if I can get to the right page of my speech. Now my pleasure to introduce Lindsay Miller, who is going to study and work as a graduate student in the Citrus building. And you may have read in the paper today, the Chronicle, about all the good work Mark Andreessen did as a graduate student. I'm fully expecting Lindsay to do at least as good a job. Like a relay race, I've long believed that all of us who get the baton run as fast and as far as we can, and then when we finish, we pass it on to the next generation. So symbolically and literally, I want to call Lindsay to the stage because you're the next generation and you're going to make Citrus a fantastic success.